All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the OwnerRez SuiteOps webinar. And we are super happy they're here today. It's been a minute since we've done a partner webinar, so thanks for joining us. And thank you, Zach, for throwing in the chat that you can see and hear me. That is always good. For those who haven't been to a webinar before with the Zoho product here, the chat is on your left side, and if you have any questions throughout the webinar, we are going to answer them towards the last 10-15 minutes or so. We're going to go for about a half hour or so today, and if you have any questions, you can throw them in while the webinar is going, and we will answer them after. So there's a Q&A button. You can go and throw them in there. That is ideal, but if not, you can also throw them in the chat, and we'll pull them out from there. This is also recorded. You're going to be sent the replay link afterwards, along with any links that we talk about. So don't worry about trying to jot stuff down right now. So my name is Paul Hall. I'm the head of partnerships and marketing here at OwnerRez. I'm joined today by Simon Samrosi from SuiteOps, COO and co-founder. So super glad he can make it. And we're talking World Cup. World Cup's coming up. I'm sure you guys have seen that. I feel like everybody's been talking about the World Cup in the vacation rental industry. It is a huge deal for everybody. We're talking about how to capture event-driven demand, even if you're not in a host city. Now, he's going to be talking for the most part today, but before I pass it over, I just want to briefly mention what OwnerRez is and does for anybody here who maybe doesn't know what we do. So OwnerRez is a property management system and channel manager at its core. So we connect with all the major channels, think Verbo, Booking.com, Airbnb. We're the highest rank with all those channels, and we really strive to have the best channel connections, so you don't have to worry about any double bookings or anything like that. We also build all of our channel connections in-house rather than use third-party tools. So if there ever was an issue or there's an update or whatever, we're able to get those updates out pretty instantaneously instead of having to wait for whatever the third party is to update them. The tiles on the right side of your screen are kind of what we like to focus on and do really, really well. So integrations, just like the one that we have today, we have hundreds of integrations. So pretty much any way you want to build your tech stack, you can build it. You can, mix and match as much as you please. So we really try to work with everybody that we can and give you guys the most freedom to do what you want with the software. So property management, that is a big one. So if you manage properties for owners, you definitely would want to take advantage of that. You can, do owner statements, run reports. You can give portal access. There's a whole bunch you can do, which leads me to the reporting tile over there. Something really cool about OwnerRez is every piece of OwnerRez data that you put into OwnerRez, you can export out of OwnerRez. A lot of times property management systems will try to lock that behind a paywall or just not give it to you at all. And we don't believe in that. We believe it's your data. You should be able to do whatever you want with it. And that is the case here at OwnerRez. So the next one, accounting. Another cool thing is you can bring your own payment processor. You can work with a bunch of different ones. We don't lock you in and say, hey, you have to use this one. You got a bunch of options to pick from. And there's a bunch of reporting that goes along with that as well. And websites. So direct booking websites. If you don't have a direct booking website, now's the time to start thinking about it. Direct booking websites are great. They're super easy to set up with OwnerRez. You can have one in a matter of minutes because it just uses the information you already have set in OwnerRez. And that way, maybe the first time a guest finds you on Airbnb, but then the next time they want to come stay, they can do it on your direct booking site, and everybody saves money doing it that way. Messaging, that is a huge one. That is a key piece. That is something that a lot of people, some people only use OwnerRez for the messaging piece because we have all of your messaging integrated into OwnerRez. So your Airbnb messages, your Verbo, if you want to have SMS, you can do that. Everything is inside one unified inbox. And now we have Rez AI that can respond for you or do draft mode or whatever. And it just makes it really easy to get back to your guests as soon as possible. And the last tile before I pass it off is CRM. This is something not a lot of people think about, but CRM is kind of a big deal and not all systems have this. But every contact that you get over time gets stored in OwnerRez, and you can then export that to a Constant Contact, the MailChimp, StayFi, you name it, and you can then run marketing campaigns to try to drive people to, hey, we're having holiday discounts or whatever, right? Send those email blasts out. That is the CRM. You can go in there anytime, take those contacts and do what you want with them. All right, that's all I'm going to say about OwnerRez. We do an hour-long demo every week, so if you want to learn more, come to that. We'll send you a link to that later. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Simon, and he can go ahead and start talking. So there you go. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Paul, for putting this together, inviting me, and chatting about an important topic today that I think is, obviously everybody here is aware of, but what we're going to really dive into are ways in which you can maximize the World Cup opportunity. Before I get started, I guess one quick word about SuiteOp. For those who may not know, obviously you can find a lot of information on our website. We're a very close partner of OwnerRez. SuiteOp OwnerRez customers, mutual customers and partners are really crushing on both platforms. And I think it's in large part because of the reliability that both of these platforms offer you at scale. Paul just spoke about some of those direct integrations. We follow a very similar way of thinking in terms of how we integrate to various elements of your operations day to day. And really, SuiteOp focuses on three things, but we like to think of us as the software that helps you run your guest operations, what takes the most time in your day. We do this with workflows, with AI, and really our three core things is smart device management, guest experience tools to be able to grow ancillary revenue at scale. And we're going to be talking about some of that today, not in the lens of SuiteOp, but just in the lens of various things that you can do in general, whether you use us or not. And last but not least, on-the-ground tasks. It's something that, getting your teams on the ground synced with your teams that may not be on the ground as well is always an enormous challenge in decentralized operations like what many of you are running day to day. But really excited to dive into the World Cup topic. Some of you may operate in host cities, some of you may not. That's perfectly fine. I think that, I want to actually start us off with a big number that some of you may have read, and it's $30 billion. That's the projected economic impact of the World Cup on the US, Canada, and Mexico, and that's according to Tourism Economics. It's a research arm of Oxford Economics. It's a solid research lab, and that's 30 billion in one summer. It's not 30 billion spread over the year. But I think a number that matters more to people here is for folks in this room is 1.2 million, and that's the number of international visitors that are actually going to come to generate that. That's not just the total attendance; it's people that are coming internationally. We're not talking about U.S. residents or Canadian residents or Mexican residents, etc., that are going to be traveling through to a stadium for a game. We're talking about people coming out of the country, and there's something that's quite crucial here. It's that, and the data starts showing us that World Cup fans aren't crossing the Atlantic to just watch one match. In fact, Airbnb did research on that as well. And what they show is that the guests that are coming for the World Cup are booking very often extended stays. They're not booking for a weekend or even a long weekend. They're building an entire vacation around the tournament. It's a big investment. There's actually a lot of past data that shows that as well. I think Expedia did a study that shows that almost 50% of guests that travel internationally for sporting events end up staying quite a long time. And what's important is that the demand is already live. Some of you, again, may have experienced it. Some of you maybe aren't or aren't prepared for it. But we're already noticing searches for host cities on OTAs that are up almost 100% year over year. So, most of you that are potentially looking at the list on the next slide, if we can switch to that, Paul, we'll see like the list of host cities here, and it's that left side, is a bit of a trap. It's the thought of like, oh well, if I don't operate in Dallas, Boston, New York, or Seattle, what am I? Is this webinar really for me? I would just say, stick around. We're going to be chatting about that today. because there's the, is my city one of those is actually the wrong question. The right question really is, where is the demand going to be when those cities fill up? And they will. There's already signs of spillover, whether because the cities are becoming too expensive for travelers, or whether because they want to make it a longer vacation, and being in an urban area for a longer vacation is maybe not what some travelers have in mind. And so if you're an operator that is in a drive-to market within a couple of hours of any of those places, even if you're at a 2-hour, 3-hour plane trip from any of those places, then there's a big opportunity here, not necessarily for during the tournament, but for pre or post-tournament vacations and stays. And if you're in between host cities, we're also already noticing that a lot of guests traveling internationally, they aren't just coming for one game. They're coming for 2 or 3 games. For those who don't know, the World Cup tickets a lot of them were awarded through lottery, and some people did get multiple tickets to multiple games as well at times. So if you're in a host city that's in a corridor, make sure to plan for additional demand as well. Let's first talk about what type of travelers that is, and we're going to look at the next slide here to understand that a little bit better. So the international guest is a different kind of guest than what some of you may be more used to. Obviously, for those that operate in the US and that are joining us today, the US is a strong local market, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of your guests locally as well. Expect that to change. There's a couple of trends that one has to keep in mind. And the first one is one based on key data, actually. They shared that World Cup travelers are booking urban markets 6 months or more in advance at times. That the good news here is that if you're not in a host city, a person may have booked that anchor stay in, say, New York for 3 to 4 nights, because New York hotels are priced at $800 to $1,000 a night, so most people aren't able to afford more than that, even squeezing multiple people in a room. But they may have not booked their ancillary stays around. So there's still time to do something now about it. And obviously, for context, the urban vacation rental market typically sees windows that are closer to 14 to 30 days. For those of you that operate in urban areas today, you know that. And obviously, we're seeing something more around the 2 months. So this is a very unique, almost resort-like attitude where we're not used to that, but it's something that one needs to prepare for. So don't optimize your pricing in 1 month or 3 weeks before the stay. It should be done now. It probably should have been done a month or 2 ago. What's also really important is the group size. So be ready to cater to larger groups. So if you do have homes that are 1 bedrooms, don't discount them. But if you have an opportunity to add a cot, if you have an opportunity to upgrade your sofa to a sleeper, those guests are going to be paying a lot on those stays. And so thinking about that, thinking about how you can expand some of the accommodation size without expanding the actual space is something that is worth looking into as well. We're looking at group size averaging about 5 guests. The other thing that's important is not just the impact during the World Cup, but after. This is actually an opportunity. In US travelers are very rating based, right? Like you go to a restaurant, you leave 4 stars, 5 stars, maybe a couple notes. Yelp forces you to write maybe 100 words, and you hit that minimum and press send. International travelers are quite different culturally. They like to write stories. They like to add photos. And we'll be talking about this a bit later in this chat today, but your review collection strategy needs to be different than your traditional review collection strategy. You may be currently doing something, at checkout, maybe 1 week after the stay, 3 days after the stay, if they haven't left a review, using OwnerRez's messaging, for example, to leverage that. It's good. It's going to be an opportunity here to tweak this to have long-lasting positive effects after the World Cup as well. And then perhaps the most important point on this slide is channels. Now, I think Paul said it really well. If you don't have a direct booking, you should have one. People are going to be looking for the best deals. and having a direct booking site is crucial. They may find you on an OTA on Airbnb and then see, oh, I love this home, I love this room, I love this stay. Let me see if it's cheaper on their direct website, 5% less, 10% less. And then a high converting OwnerRez booking engine here can be incredibly helpful in getting that direct booking that you've been potentially wanting. But it doesn't mean you can't discount OTA. You can discount OTAs altogether. And so think about your channel mix very differently than you may be today. You may be more focused on Airbnb and Vrbo. It's time to be on other OTAs as well. And here again, I mean, OwnerRez will have the ability to do so. But whether it's booking.com, whether it's other OTAs, regional OTAs, think about that. It's going to help expand what travelers are actually booking through today. And that's where obviously the potential opportunity to generate more revenue at booking is. But as we're not going to see in the next slide, booking revenue and accommodation fare is not all that. And there's going to be an opportunity to generate things beyond. But in order to get there, you need to set yourself up for success. And so obviously automation, was the word of the year in 2025, in 2024, 2025, and 2026. We're looking at AI and taking automations to the next stage. So it's crucial that not only you have messaging in place in order to be able to answer messages incredibly quickly. So whether that's intelligently scheduled, pre-scheduled messages through your PMS, through OwnerRez, whether it's using a co-pilot or autopilot like Rezi that Paul mentioned earlier, but something that you can do also uphill and ahead of that is, what if you could avoid as much as possible messages before the stay in general, and messages once the stay has been booked? Because what we've noticed is guests in general would rather not send you a message at all. What you have to think about here is this event is going to be unlike anything you've ever really potentially experienced in the last 12 months in the US, especially as the markets has gone through ups and downs. But we're talking about a lot more guests. We're talking about higher potential occupancy, shorter turn windows. And the ones that are going to be able to come out of this successful are the ones that are going to build systems that are going to be ready before the guest even asks a question. There's actually a couple of really interesting data points there, but one that's everybody should be aware of. It's actually a Q1 report that said that almost 70% of guests, I think the number is like 68 or 69%, are willing to pay a premium for a guaranteed early check-in or late checkout that requires zero messaging with the host. That last part is what makes the report interesting, is that a lot of people want an early check-in, but if they have to go back and forth, oh, can I have an early check-in? Well, yes, it's available. Oh, we'll only let you know a day before. They don't want to talk to you if they don't have to. They want a seamless transaction. So whether you use a SuiteOp portal, whether you use another portal, there's plenty of great options out there as well. Whether you build intelligently or even vibe code your own early check-in transaction tool, whether you use a Google form, like ensure that you have a process in place that can take into account any operational restrictions you have in order to be able to offer those things extremely easily and honestly effortlessly to your guest without requiring any back and forth messaging. So the other thing I want to think about here is you are going to get more questions inevitably, like regardless. Unfortunately, what we know in this space is you could have the best booking engine with all the information that you need, incredibly well crafted messages, a portal that is a guest OS and guidebook that has all the information that you would ever need to answer. But a guest is still going to ask you, when it's written right in front of them, what's the Wi-Fi? And so what you want to do is prepare a very clear playbook, not just have a couple of catered answers, but actually create your question audit. So what's really great about OwnerRez, and I think in 2026, it's something that is a must-have. So look at your tools, and is it doing that? As OwnerRez obviously has an API, and what that means is, and they have an API that allows you to connect actually to the messaging as well. And what that means is that you can start understanding at scale over a large period of time, what are the common questions that your guests are asking you. Don't just leverage AI and say, okay, you know what, it's going to answer the questions for me. This is a much easier situation. If guests would rather not ask the question, even if the answer is delivered to them in under a minute. So do that audit. And then, and to do that audit, we can skip to the next slide here. Draft a prompt, connect to your OwnerRez API, use Claude, and share that prompt. So this is a prompt that I quickly drafted here, but you can create your own. And really, what you want to do is have a proactive communication strategy. So if you need any help, or you want to chat about AI, or talk about how to potentially set that up with OwnerRez, with internal tools maybe using today, don't hesitate to let me know after the call as well. Shoot me an email, and I'm happy to walk you through ways to get that done. But in today's world, there's a trove of data, and you now have access at your fingertips to super intelligence to be able to navigate that data and get what you need. So ask that to your PMS. Like, what are the messages I'm getting the most? Draft the best answers based on answers I've provided and how guests have reacted to those answers. Now that you have that data, build it out in your portal. Ensure that your direct booking engine has all of that data clearly up front. Because at the end of the day, the reason why guests still ask you questions that are written out in materials that you share prior to this stay, it's not because it's poorly written or it's necessarily hard to find. It's because it's drowning under all other informational content that isn't necessarily as important. This is your opportunity to prioritize how you share that content in a proactive way before it becomes a message that the guest sends to you. Now let's talk about the cost of not doing that, and we'll look at that in the next page here. The cost of not being proactive, not having your ducks in a row ahead of the conference, is that it's math that we often don't really do because it's hard math to do. When something wrong happens operationally because I'm not meeting the needs of my guests, whether it's bandwidth or something else, how much money am I leaving on the table? How much money are my potential owners losing in the process as well? I hope that you're all under this statistic, but almost 10% of SDR turnovers experience a disruption today. Whether it's related to a no-show of a team member, a scheduling error, a miscommunication regarding check-in or checkout. The real number, I think, is 8, so it's 8%, so 1 in 12. And on a normal week, it's pretty manageable. When that happens, you can send another team member, you can call the guests, add the human element there. But on a 39-day tournament at 2 to 3x volume with back-to-back same-day checkouts, like the cascade is sort of waiting to happen. And so what you want to think about here is the things that you can put in place, again, in order to mitigate that before it hits you. So there's a couple numbers here on the page, but 1 in 12 turnovers are disrupted today by staffing issues. Operations was mentioned in 2025 as the hardest issue. I think Key Data said 73% of you guys flagged staffing and operations as your most immediate constraint. And the cost is really high. The cost is much higher than you occasionally factor. And that's Resort Cleaning actually said that it was about 3,500 based on data they ran across millions of cleans last year. That's due to a couple of things. It's not just a refund that you may have to issue. It's a refund. It's sometimes an emergency a fee that you have to pay a vendor to run, and it's a review fallout that will impact performance for that particular property for months to come. So it's really, really crucial that you put in place a couple of things. So if you have in-house teams, ensure that you are overstaffed. I typically never share this with any operators, and for background, before co-founding SuiteOp, I started a short-term rental operation in the northeast of the US with about 450 doors. So I've been in your shoes and understand how staffing is hard, finding good, trustworthy people is difficult. Here, you're going to want to be a bit more liberal about growing your team ahead of time. In normal times, I would always say, wait for the pressure operationally before hiring more. In 2026, right before the World Cup, you want to have backups. Even if that means that operationally your OpEx goes up by a few percentage points that month. So if you work with vendors, have additional vendors that are approved, that know your properties, that have at least, use the month of May to get those vendors once in your property to do work that you've been meaning to do, so that now if you need to call them ahead of the, during the World Cup, it'll work out. Ensure that they're going to be available during that time as well. Some of them may have prior engagements. Make sure that they're not going on vacation exactly at that time. So like double check those things today. It's a couple of calls, it's a couple hours of work that will save you headaches down the road. Obviously, auto assignment of tasks, building or using a live dashboard to understand how your operation is going in real time. It's 2:30 p.m. I have 38 clean checkouts today. What's the percentage on a normal day that should be clean at that time? Use modern tools to do this, whether it's SuiteOp or something else. Those are things that you have to have at your fingertips at a time like this. Now, on the next slide, I want to talk a bit about the opportunity, because we've spoken a lot about the risks and the costs. Let's talk about what else you can do here. So first, one of our competitors actually, I think Enzo Connect shared a data point that 30 operators who implement upsells sell up to 38%, I think, in revenue growth without having to add a property. We actually have seen that number across partners go up to about 43%. So, high performing, I think, properties in tourist destinations are really, really ripe to be able to benefit from this. And very often it's seen as like ancillary revenue. And that word ancillary is not a word I love, even though it's some word I use often because people get it. And it's because it sort of feels like it's secondary. I have my accommodation fare and then everything else is just nice to have. But when you look at that and a well-crafted upsell and experiential strategy around your stay, and you limit that not to a month, but to a single 7-stay night booking, right? Which is going to be pretty typical for a World Cup booker. Then the revenue numbers and the EBITDA, really the profit margin, is really important. Now, before diving into this, first apply this to the World Cup context. You're going to have guests that spend an average of $5,000 per person per trip. They're in celebration mode. They're traveling groups of 5, as we mentioned earlier. They're not actually scrutinizing every dollar. So a well-timed early check-in, mid-stay clean for a large group, it's usually pretty crucial. A local experience package through a deep link through a partner that you work with or someone online, like those aren't going to be intrusive. They're going to be services. And you can see here how crucial, the difference that can make. You can more than double your actual net margin on a booking by offering them, an early check-in, a mid-stay clean, and potentially getting a small commission from a $200-300 experience. And those numbers here are not made up. Those are average early check-in numbers we see across mid to large size properties. Those mid-stay clean $50 is based on the margin you would generate. You may charge $100, but the housekeeping cost may cost you $50. So this is how you can double or triple your EBITDA with upsells through a scenario in which people aren't watching their wallet as intensely as they normally would. And take advantage of that, because otherwise the only people that are going to be taking advantage of the World Cup are going to be your owners. Your management fee obviously is a percentage of revenue, so that will grow. But if you could double or triple that amount with additional ancillary services, what are you waiting for? So that's a really important strategy for those that haven't implemented an upsell strategy. Start thinking about a couple of upsell offers and then set them to trigger. OwnerRez as an amazing and actually hyper detailed, triggering system for messages that are separate from the messages themselves, so that you can create like different triggers that you can potentially turn on seasonally for the World Cup, because that's going to be different than maybe your regular season. So do so, and do so early. Offer your early check-in 3 weeks before, because a group of 5 arriving in a home is going to want to know what they're going to do between 9 a.m. when their flight lands and 4 p.m. at check-in. If you can offer them a 1 p.m. early check-in for $200, they may very well take you up on it to get the comfort. Now, in the next slide, I want to talk about something that's also interesting here and going to be a bit unique, and it's what are going to be the key moments, the key memories that are going to matter to a guest stay in this World Cup environment. And typically, you would say the whole stay. I mean, it even starts pre-booking. People, you want a great experience at booking. You want an incredible pre-booking experience too. You want to ensure that by the time the guest arrives, a lot of their question and answer, you want to ask how they are when they arrive. And I'm not suggesting that you stop any of those things. But during the World Cup, the mindset is going to be very, very different. There's actually a really interesting experiment about this. But during the World Cup, the mindset isn't going to be, arriving at the property and enjoying and lounging. They're going to want to explore as much as possible. And you won't control the peak of the experience, because the peak of the experience is most likely going to be the game that happens either before their stay or during their stay if you're in the host city. And you have no control there. The other peaks may be something like an anniversary dinner, because they're going to the World Cup, splurging and combining that with something else. A reunion of friends that are going to the World Cup together. And that's often going to happen outside of your 4 walls. But there's one thing you can control, and that's the ending. So there's for those that don't know, there's a really interesting experiment that was done 33 years ago in 1993 by scientist Daniel Kahneman, and he ran a study. Study's called "When More Pain is Preferred to Less Pain," and the study basically is where participants were putting their hand in 14 degrees Celsius ice water for about 60 seconds. 14 degrees Celsius, sorry, I'm French, so I do speak in Celsius, but it's about 57 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they put the other hand in the same water for about 60 seconds, plus an extra 30 seconds where the water was warmed up by just 1 degree. So to put that in perspective, that's going from 57 to 59. And then when they asked participants what they would rather do, again, participants actually preferred the longer one. 30 extra seconds of painful experience. And it was volunteer because it ended 1 degree warmer. And that's what we call the peak end rule. People don't just remember an experience by its average or its duration or what necessarily happened always during their stay. What they're mostly going to remember is the peak and the ending. And so obviously for OTAs, platforms leave 14 days for guests to submit a review after checkout, typically at least. That's your window right there. But don't just leverage the platform. Create a Google business listing if you don't already have one. And typically, what we find is that an operator sends 5 to 8 messages before check-in, all the way to check-in, and then maybe just one at checkout, like, hope you had a great stay, make sure to be out by 11 a.m. That type of messaging, especially in a World Cup experience, is stacked against you, and that's what the guest, will remember. So the fix is 3 simple touches. One is the night before, a very gentle, warm reminder. Don't just list them a list of checkout instructions, things not to forget. Hope that they had a fantastic stay. Ask them if there's anything that you could do. And just make sure to gently remind them that checkout is at 11. If late checkout is an option for you, offer it. They might take you up on it. Then what you're going to want to do is a couple hours after checkout, thank them. At that point, they just left. They may be in the car. They may be heading to a flight. Thank them and potentially ask them, what's one thing about their stay that they really enjoyed. That may seem a bit not natural. It's not as common, in the U.S. culture, but in European culture and in cultures around the world, guests love to share stories about what they did and what they went, and they might answer with something that actually will be extremely wholesome. And then about a day or two after the stay, add something else that doesn't necessarily need to be a nudge, but refer to something in the home or something that you know they've experienced. Whether it's a manual message or whether it's something that's, again, completely pre-canned. You know your home has this one cool feature. You can say, I hope that you really enjoyed and had a chance to do dinner on the balcony. If they did, then they'll remember it. If they didn't, then they'll think about it and long for not doing it, and they'll think about it regardless with appreciation. So think about those 3 touches that you may not be doing today. In this World Cup environment, it's great, and it's something you may end up keeping longer term. So now to finish up on our end, on the last slide here, I'll just leave you guys with what your World Cup timeline really should be. So there's things you should be doing today if you haven't done them 30 to 60 days ago already. And a lot of those things should be done on your PMS, on OwnerRez. It's activating the right OTAs, it's setting up minimum lengths of stays, auditing your listings, not only for pre-booking experience, but also post. Think about internationalization. That's really crucial. If you have a 60-year-old Japanese couple coming for a World Cup game, they're not going to speak English. Ensure that you have the ability to deliver that information in the native tongues of your guests staying with you. 60 days out, which means basically now as well, you are going to want to set potentially early booking pricing incentives. For guests that are a little bit late to book, tell them now is the time. Because what you don't want is be left at the tail end of the market with guests that most likely would have already booked their stay. You want to be able to capture that demand, ideally 40 to 60 days out if you haven't already. We spoke about that, but build those 3 upsell offers. You may have an early check-in today. It doesn't mean it's enough. How can you improve it? Think about maybe slicing and dicing it more. Can I offer a 11 a.m. early check-in for $300, which sounds a lot, but for $500 a night stay, people will pay for that. A 1 p.m. early check-in for $150, and maybe a 2:30 p.m. convenient one for $50. Like, there's ways to optimize things that you may already be doing today, and those optimizations have an important impact, especially as your portfolio grows. Obviously, while checkout asks are important, do put in place things to ensure that you capture the guest's mood at arrival and shortly after arrival in a way that is data-driven, not just the message, and especially not just the message at 8 p.m. on the day of check-in while the guest may still be on the plane or landing at the airport, but a message the next morning once you've known that they've checked in, and potentially an actual survey asking them how their stay is. International guests are much more likely to fill those up. A couple of weeks before, make sure that your vendors are set. Update any potential information with stadium information. Those are questions that you don't have today, but you're going to get them. Redesign your checkout flow. We've spoken about that as well. And then test your guest journey end to end. This isn't a set and forget type of thing. You have to ensure that every few months, create a booking for yourself, go through it as if you were a guest, and see where the experience is and where the friction points are. Here, 2-3 weeks before, do it. Because a lot of those guests are going to get a couple of your pre-scheduled messages by then, but there's a lot of the experience that can still be tweaked. I hope this was helpful. Obviously, don't hesitate to come find Paul or myself after. My email is simon@suiteop.com, and we'd be more than happy to help set you up or chat through any of this. Paul, back to you.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing all that. That is super great. And remember, this is recorded, so you guys can rewatch this if you joined late or something like that. We're open to questions now. So if you have questions, throw them in now. I see somebody wrote that they have optimized since December 2025. They're on pretty much all the channels. Do you have any suggestions for what they could do to drive more bookings? So one thing from the OwnerRez side, which is kind of a new thing that kind of relates to what Simon was saying was we have a quality dashboard now. So if you go to the quality dashboard, you can see if your listings are optimized to the best of their ability. You can see what the sentiment has been. You can use and see if there's anything trending, like everybody's complaining about some, I don't know, the toilet handle, like maybe go. So there, I would say from an OwnerRez side, I would start there first, and then also make sure that you are optimized, because everybody thinks optimized in different ways. So make sure that your listings are actually bookable farther out. Make sure that you do have those early bird discounts set up in OwnerRez. You know, if you're going to do surcharges and things, make sure those are already set as well. So if, as far as from an OwnerRez perspective goes, we'd be happy to kind of just help look at your account real quick. If you think there might be something wrong, just shoot an email to help@ownerrez.com and we can kind of just poke in and see what's going on there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, like to add to that, I definitely think that you are going to see some bookings. We are actually seeing this play in your area. I'm based in New York, so it's a data point I'm very familiar with. But Jersey is already getting a ton of demand. You may know, I'm sure if you're near New York, about Manhattan's local law 18, which completely gutted Airbnb supply in the city. And so demand for the MetLife matches, and I want to say there was 8 or 10. Is already pouring across the Hudson into Jersey. So maybe it hasn't made it exactly to your area yet, but that pour over can happen very quickly. So you know, the first reassuring thing is you're not late. Like FIFA closed the last ticket wave, one of the last ticket waves in January, and then they had another ticket wave in February. So a lot of people didn't have tickets yet. They're not going to fully commit. And I think the matches in New York are starting mid-June and end like late July. So you're going to see still some bookings and accommodations 6 to 8 weeks. I would also say, like, are your listings speaking to the World Cup guest? Like, is your listing copy like built for a weekend traveler, or is somebody booking from Brazil? You know, do you mention MetLife Stadium proximity? That's going to rank well. Do you mention transit to New York? Look at your minimum length of stay. Like OwnerRez can help you there as well, like on that strategy. Make sure you don't have anything that's too restrictive. You know, 7, 8 night may be too high. Maybe lower it. Try with a couple of homes. Check your comp stats naturally. You know, I think that like you're on the core channels. You have sounds like you have great listings and great properties. So well done there. You should be doing well. I think your job between now and May is just make sure that like the guest from you know, Sao Paulo or from Marseille reads your listing like it was more built for them and less for someone coming from Atlanta for a weekend.
All right. Yeah, those are really great points. I'm just checking the Q&A section. Let's see. I'm unsure when the best time is to upsell early check-in. I have deep links, but at the moment I only include the deep links in the booking confirmation message. Do you have any data on when these early check-in and late checkout touch points best perform?
Yeah, I mean, I can quickly jump in on this one, and I think so. Links are important, and that's great. Make sure that you have a platform that is accessible prior to the stay and beyond a link, because links can get lost, right? You're going to send a message and booking confirmation. Then within 5 days of the stay or a week before the stay, when they're like figuring out what to do 3-4 hours before check-in, that message is buried 10 messages deep and they may miss it. So I would definitely consider, you know, additional messages at least 7 to 10 days before check-in, because that's when a guest is going to say, "Uh-oh, I don't have any plans and we land at 9 a.m. What are we going to figure out?" And then send them a reminder the day before. Offer a super early check-in if you don't have a back-to-back. Say like, "Oh, you know what? Our normal early check-in of 2 p.m. we can offer for $200. We can offer it to you for 9 a.m. this time." Comfort here for a group of 5 or 6, 30, 40 bucks each could be a no-brainer. So I definitely recommend having different early check-in options too for those different criteria that could help your conversion rate.
Yeah, and you can set all this up fully automated inside OwnerRez. And if you have the SMS turned on in OwnerRez, a lot of people have started setting up automated SMS to go out, like we're saying, like 7 days before or even the day before. And that is just another touch point. So now you can, one, hit their email and their phone. A lot of people will get to see their phone message before their email. So that is definitely something to think about. Now, a lot of the time with Airbnb, if that's where they're coming from, you are going to have to go through the Airbnb messaging, but you can still set that up in OwnerRez fully automated still. But depending on what information you collect before, before they arrive, you could have their phone number. Like at least in OwnerRez, you can set up basically a guest form where they have to go and fill out what's your email, what's your phone number, sign our rental agreement. That's totally legal to do, by the way. I know it's a little bit like, can I actually like send a link to the guest? And the Airbnb guest, by the way, send them a link and have them fill out my rental agreement. And when doing that, can I also ask them for contact information? Yes, you can do that. You can fully do that. We've been doing it for years. The people who use OwnerRez have been doing it for years. That is the best way to go about it, because then you get their real contact. And you can still message them on platform. It's still recommended to do that, but it's kind of nothing is better than having the actual phone number of the guest in case anything arises, right? So I would definitely look into setting that up if you don't have that. Let me see here. The property I manage is located in San Antonio. Do you think we will still get spillover of tourists? July 1st to the 26th is still open. What's the best strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, you absolutely will. I do want to obviously mention there was a bit of like craze, right? I mean, I think like some people also thought they were going to get $3,000-4,000 a night, and it was going to be like a fully booked F1 weekend and a small F1 host down. It's not necessarily going to be that either, right? Obviously, there's geopolitical conditions that are potentially making it harder for people that were planning on going to go. So while there's an opportunity right for the taking here, this is obviously about optimization. It's not about a get-rich-quick World Cup experience. I wish it was. And we will certainly see more of those things. Obviously, Olympics in LA, then soon. So, but don't give up on the fact that a lot of guests are also buying tickets and waiting to ensure that the geopolitical situation doesn't get bad or worse before fully committing to coming. Tickets are resellable, right? Remember that. Like so some people have bought a ticket got a ticket lottery 6 months ago, got a refundable flight, and are just waiting. So if your current booking strategy, if your current cancellation strategy is like a bit harsh, consider making it potentially more flexible as well. Those kind of bookers may be more tempted. But even if they have been booked,
Not sure if we lost you. Well, yeah, I still have internet. Okay, well, we might just cut it there. Okay, thanks, Zach. Can you hear me still, hopefully, everybody? Yeah, okay. Well, we'll just leave it there, and maybe it'll connect for Simon. But here are all the available resources that you can leverage from OwnerRez. So we have a huge support doc center. If you go to ownerrez.com/support, you're going to find a ton of support docs that you can search for whatever you're looking for. We also have Ask Resi now, our AI assistant, and it can help you set up surcharges, discounts, you name it. It can give you all that information. We also have support videos. Zach, who's in the chat, helps with the support videos. And then we have our OwnerRez community forums where you can go and talk to other users and see how they're handling certain situations. Of course, follow our blog, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. That's where we announce things and push our product updates and things like that. So Simon, as you connected back, I'm just kind of wrapping it up right now. Anything else you'd like to say before we close it out?
No, I want to thank everyone. I think internet stopped in the whole building for about a minute there. So apologies for stopping midway. All I say is if you don't have a booking yet, don't give up. Lots of short stay coming, lots of short notice stay and lead times coming still. Thanks everyone for making the time on a, I'm sure, very busy, knowing the industry, morning or afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. Paul, I want to really give you a heartfelt thank you for making the time, for organizing this. I know how much time it puts into that. So you need to put into something like this. So thanks everyone. If there's any questions, if you want to talk shop, connect with Paul or myself by email, on LinkedIn, we are more than happy to help. We're in this industry together. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing today as well. We really appreciate it. And everybody's going to be sent the replay link along with the email with links that we've talked about and shared in the chat. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you on the next webinar. All right.